welcome to Engineer's Workshop. We're over here with the other kind of shaper. Now, this is a wood shaper. It's actually a wood shaper mandrel mounted onto a homemade stand. And what I have is some specially ground cutters that were made to reproduce a double bead wainscot. Double bead wainscot is just what it says. There's two round beads in two locations. Now normally there's only a single bead here and here, and you can't buy this type of wainscot anymore. So my initial thought was to have matched cutters made that will go in and clean up the original grooves, take out all the paint and everything, but that proved to be too much for these, and these dulled very quickly after running about, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 pieces through there. If I can get here close enough to see this, we got some pretty severe rounding over of the points, and a little bit in the round gullets also. Now the flats were easy enough to rehone. I set up it's a diamond stone with just some lubricant, and by holding these at the appropriate angle, I was able to rehone the flats until the rounded over points went away, maintaining that angle. The challenge is in these little fluted area. And the fluted area is a pretty tight radius. The only thing that I felt would fit in this are these little chainsaw sharpening stones that you can get, at Lowe's or Home Depot that go into your Dremel tool. It's actually a little bit bigger in diameter than the stone. And the challenge for me is, how do I maintain that angle and still doing, basically a hand operation and touch up these edges where I'm getting, a little bit of round over here. So I came up with what I thought was a pretty good solution to this. And the first step in this is to establish that angle with a bevel. And once I've got that angle, I'm going to take a piece of steel and make an angled block which will hold the orientation of this vertically. Then I can put the grinding stone in the spindle of the K&T, which goes up to 4,000 RPM. It's actually the fastest turning thing I have right now. And then I can, by hand, bring that each of these gullets against that stone and hone it and get rid of that rolled over edge. Let's see how it works out. It's actually quite a bit of mental geometry to figure out how this works, but basically if I want a little notched block to hold this knife vertically and be able to set this flat surface down on the top of the vise, what I have to do is set up a block against the base of the square, and then these angles match. And to mill that, it's going to have to be set in the machine with the top of the blade horizontal, so that block will be sitting in the vise clamped at approximately that angle. So let's see if we can set this up and make a little block to hold these knives. So after all of that setup and my intention of getting a knife that is oriented like this, I somehow managed to get the complement of the angle. And the only way that this works is if I set it up like this. Now the match seems pretty good to the gullet of the knife, but this leaves my fingertips uncomfortably close to this 4,000 RPM collet nut. So what I really need to do is mill the complement of this angle on this surface. So I should be able to set this on a parallel and then mill a 90 to this, and I'll end up with the right angle to set that like that, and then have this edge be vertical. Now that got me what I wanted. Keeps my hands clear of the collet. Now you can see from my first test cuts of this that it's touching both on the top and the bottom of the area where I blued, which means that the gullets were actually cut on the perimeter of a wheel that was dressed to that radius. So it was kind of like a hollow grind. Couldn't see that as I was setting up, but because I'm touching on both top and bottom, that means I got that angle pretty good. So let's dial this up, and I'll show you how I'm cleaning these up. Got them all looking like that. I'm going to move the stone down, re-blue them, and touch it one more time. This way we're grinding on a fresh area on the stone. Three passes each on each gullet, and hopefully that'll keep things uniform, and hopefully those edges will be nice and razor sharp. So since our little cylindrical grindstone contacted both the top and the bottom of those conical profiles, I mean, that shows they were hollow ground, and it's like the wheel was edge on, was traveling in this direction, and they dressed the wheel to have that particular radius. But because I contacted both the top and the bottom, spinning a similar radius or diameter in this fashion, tells me that I hit the angle of that pretty well, because it's not very long. You're only talking about maybe a 1/4 inch there to there, and to hit both of those when I took a few thousandths off, surprisingly hit that angle pretty well. So I'm going to mount these up in this cutter now. The previous cut I was making was using this as a bead, making an edge profile on some undersill nosing on windows. So these come off and these go on.